We hear a lot in the news about changes and regulations for business, and a lot about the work that's being done in Lansing.
But there's a lot more work also going on behind the scenes. Much of that agenda is the focus of groups like the Chambers of Commerce and Traverse Connect. And joining us now to talk about the goals for Northern Michigan, Traverse Connect's Director of Government Relations, Haley Bennett, is here, and Cadillac Chamber President Caitlyn Stark. Thank you guys for being with us.
Thank you for having us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Talk to us about, let's start with the Chambers of Commerce and the Chamber Alliance. I mean, Haley, let's start with you and who all is involved in this group here in Northern Michigan.
Yeah, happy to share more. So I'm the director of the Northern Michigan Chamber Alliance, which is a coalition of over 19 economic development organizations and chamber all across Northern Michigan and the UP. So we have chambers down to Manistee, over to Iosco, all the way up to Marquette. And so our coverage is really broad, and we're excited to grow that year over year and make sure that Northern Michigan has a voice and has a seat at the table when decisions are being made.
Now, Caitlyn, as someone from one of our local chambers, how does this benefit? Because other communities, it almost seems like the Chamber of Commerces are fighting each other. But here, it's we're all coming together to form a larger group and have a bigger say in what affects us. How do you see that playing out?
It's mandatory, especially when you're speaking on rural communities. It's us partnering with our caucus, our Northern Michigan legislators, to say this is the priorities to keep our communities growing. These are the priorities that keep us together. Every community has a different chamber of commerce. You know, when you see one chamber, you see one chamber. And that's because your chamber, your entity of commerce, your gathering of people, represents the community that you strive in.
Gotcha, okay.
But when we're talking about what we're doing to strive for our businesses, and we are now indicate that it's Northern Michigan plus the UP, it's us standing together that say these issues affect every single one of our communities. Every single one of these partnerships affect these communities. This conference is us as the chambers. We have these intimate relationships with our leadership at the state level, at the legislative level. It's us bringing those intimate relationships to our members and saying, these are the things that we're working on. We want you to have that connection and that relationship as well. And we want to have those raw conversations that play out in front of you. We get to experience that. That's part of what our role is. We get to do it in Lansing. We get to go do it in DC, and we intentionally go on those trips. We make those phone calls. But when we have this policy conference experience, it's us bringing it to the membership. And this conference is so unique in that way that we get to share that intimacy with the membership, with the region, on why these issues are so important in our area, and then show our legislators and our Michigan leadership, when we come and visit you, this is who we're representing. Every single person in this room is here voicing these concerns. When we bring you a letter, when we send you an email, when we put in a card of opposition, or when we put in a card of support, when we're signing onto a coalition, it's this room of people. And the room is the most emerged, it's the most engaged leadership in the region. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the people that are affected by the legislation that Haley and our team is fighting every single day for our membership. So this conference is our way of bringing it back to the membership. That cool part of seeing those raw conversations on stage, it's so much fun because they're raw, because they're intimate. What's happening in that room is just as important as what begins happening in the hallway, because they don't get to be together all the time, except when they're on stage like that.
Sure.
And so when you've got all these top leaders in the community sitting there speaking on behalf of what they're going to do this session, what our priorities are, what the relationships are going to look like, we're talking in real time about how we're going to handle this season, well then, you've got your emerged leaders, you've got your CEOs, your presidents, your community affairs, your government affairs sitting in the room, and they're going, holy smokes, Batman, Haley, we need to go talk about this, because they just said something we weren't thinking about, or they just shared a dynamic that's going to impact us this session. And so that conference, not only is it the leap off for the year, but you're having this insight, and we're sharing that with the group.
Haley, let me ask you, and just kind of bouncing off of what Caitlyn said, but obviously, lots of times people think, well, I'm just one person, I don't have a voice, or even a business owner might think, how is anything I say going to get down to Lansing? That's really what the point of the alliance is. It's to build the advocacy and bring all those voices together and make much louder one voice.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that, Bill. There's really power in numbers. And I should mention, too, the Alliance has been around for over 20 years. And so we've continued to have that presence. And we try to be in Lansing as much as we can, but we know it's equally as important to make sure that our decision makers and leaders are experiencing Northern Michigan and seeing for themselves what our communities are like and how our rural communities are different than other areas and our needs need to be considered. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to policy.
I want to ask about the conference and maybe some of the focuses, plural. I mean, you've got 4 focus areas really that you're touching on as part of the conference this year. So what will those people attending be hearing about?
Yeah, and as Caitlyn alluded to, if you're catching on, we're talking about our Northern Michigan Policy Conference that's going to take place January 31st. And this is a way for us to come together to really highlight our priorities for the year and beyond. And be able to kind of take that charge on this is what's important to us. And so everything we do is under the umbrella of economic development. We want to make sure that's regionally driven and that, again, that we're helping move forward and not just responding to different policies as they come out. So you're going to hear from state leaders about their strategy for what the next 10 years looks like for Michigan in terms of economic development. Another overarching theme for the conference and just for our work day in and day out is around talent. That means attracting talent to our region, retaining it, making sure that our local talent that was born and raised in this region can stay here if they so choose, and that they have childcare, they have good paying jobs to afford housing. We're building more housing. It's all encompassing, as you know. And that's where our third bucket really comes into around rural prosperity. We know that covers the gamut of issues. And so you'll be hearing what that means to us. What does it mean to have a vibrant rural region? And we're looking forward to really honing in our conversations on those 3 priorities.
Now, if someone who's not a member of a chamber but is really interested in following along with this conference and what comes out of it, where could someone potentially go to get updates and to just kind of get a pulse check of what you're doing throughout the year? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, we encourage folks to follow along. We're continually sharing more about the conference and what's to come. If you're even the slightest bit interested in policy or this sparks your interest, please come. Follow along at nmchamberalliance.com, where we'll be sharing more about the event, the run of show, what's to come. But mark your calendars for January 31st at the Grand Traverse Resort.
Caitlyn, just about 30 seconds left, but if someone is watching, maybe a business owner now, what would you say is the biggest benefit you've seen as a part of the Chamber and the Chamber Alliance?
You're not alone. When you're running a business, you know what you know, and you're passionate about running your business, and there's so many factors outside of you running your business that affect day-to-day. Workforce development, retention, attraction is just one of those elements. Your Chamber of Commerce in your local community is there for all those outside factors. We're here to bring in those connections. We're here to bring in those advocacies. We're here to bring those relationship opportunities, the trainings, because what you do is your strengths, and we're here to work alongside of you so that you're driving business forward in your community.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Thank you
Ladies,
both
thank
so
you so
much
much
for coming in today.
We appreciate you having us. Thank you.
And we're going to make sure all the information you need, all the links to check out the upcoming conference, it's all going to be available after the show day over on our website, 910news.com. Thanks again.